I am a part of Group A on how obesity is not a disability due to social and economic reasons. My groupmates consist of Ray Angeles, Adam Garcia, Isaac Holgan, Jose Jimenez, and myself, Jason Gomez. Obesity in America has grown significantly over the decades and has been predicted to increase in the future. To be classified as obese, an individual's BMI score must be 30 or greater. BMI scores are calculated by measuring a person's weight in kilograms and dividing by their squared amount of height in meters. Health statistics have shown that more than 1 of 3 adult Americans to date are considered to be in this category. At the same time, although many are classified as being obese, they have no limitations on their living quality. Although having disabilities and being obese have their connections, obesity on its own has opportunities to be worked on. My group focused on the areas of economic and social standpoints on how obesity is not a disability. For us to have found information to back our answers up, we had to truly learn what defines a social and economic disability. A social disability is classified when an individual is having a struggling time being part of society and due to that lives a lower quality of life. An economic disability would be if an individual suffers a disability that causes them to be affected by an economic loss. My groupmates are now going to go into more detail and research on why obesity does not fall into those categories and thus should not be considered a disability.
We believe that an economic disability can be best summarized as a situation where the disability makes the individual suffer economic losses. These economic losses may potentially be caused by the individual not being able to work and gain any economic growth. We do not believe obesity is an economic disability to the individual. One could argue that there are cases in which an individual cannot gain economic status because they are not able to work specific jobs. In the case of Green versus Union Pacific Railroad, the plaintiff Green believed his employer was denying a job transfer because of his obesity and that obesity should legally be considered as a disability. Green believed that if obesity were to become a disability, then the employer could be charged for acting against the American Disabilities Act. But the court ruled that obesity was not a disability and that Green's employer denied the transfer because an obese person would be less apt to be an efficient, safe, illness-free, and claims-free employee than one not having those conditions. It is cases like this that make it clear that while individuals may not be able to get their dream job or believe they can reach their full potential, they must still be able to physically meet the requirements for any job they could want or get. This has nothing to do with obesity, but everything to do with meeting the requirements for a job. And this is why obesity should not be considered an economic disability. For instance, if there were 2 individuals applying for the same position where they had to be able to stand for hours at a time, and the options were an obese individual and someone who is not obese, who would you imagine to be hired? The individual who can withstand the rigors of the job better. More often than not, the latter would be hired solely based upon the ability to withstand the rigor of the job while maintaining quality performance. As stated earlier, I do not believe that obesity is an economic disability because individuals who are obese can still work a job as long as they are able to fully meet the requirements of that job. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, individuals with obesity may suffer from presenteeism. Presenteeism is the decreased productivity of employees at work, which could in turn lead to economic losses. While some heads may prevail that these are the signs that obesity should be considered an economic disability, these terms further solidify the evidence presented. Employees are expected to fill their duties in a safe, efficient, illness-free, and claims-free way. It is up to the employer to find employees who would best fit this criterion. As we saw in the legal case, the plaintiff did not suffer economic losses from being obese. He suffered economic losses for not being able to work and fit this criterion. Once again, We do not believe that obesity should be considered an economic disability.
In our society, being obese is not a disability. There are several highly successful and talented people who did not let their appearance affect their livelihood in a negative way, and society supported it. Rebel Wilson, Jonah Hill, Biggie Smalls, Adele, and Lizzo are all prime examples of public figures that the world has socially accepted. We as a society have walked into a time period where body positivity is promoted by influencers such as Jessamine Stanley and Kelvin Davis. These influencers focus on trying to build a community that is intolerant to fat shaming through social media platforms. Social media has definitely changed the culture and outlook on body image, especially obesity. Instagram, a highly popular platform, is used for millions of people to communicate through visual satisfaction. This platform has transformed society's view by encouraging fitness, health, and body positivity. It is continuously given information about this regardless of body composition. Jessamine Stanley is a social media influencer who is considered obese yet performs physical activity in the form of yoga consistently. She is a well-known promoter of plus women of color and has gained over 406,000 followers for her advancement. There is too high of a percentage of highly functioning, successful, wealthy, and famous people who are obese to even consider it to be a disability on a social standpoint, especially in our technology-based community where we see an increase of individuals susceptible to being overweight. This can't be said for those with disabilities such as autism, cerebral palsy, or mental disabilities such as schizophrenia. Unfortunately, these disabilities and many more will never gain the amount of popularity or acceptance from society, unlike obesity.
Obesity is the topic in debate here. Is it a disability or not? After conducting research, my group and I believe that obesity is not a disability economically or socially. Today, I'll be focusing more on why obesity is not a disability from a social standpoint. According to Mayo Clinic, there are many different factors that can contribute to the growing rate of obesity here in the United States. From the social standpoint, the factors that provide this point are binge eating, too much screen time, bad sleep patterns or lack of sleep, and inactivity. There are definitely factors that are uncontrollable due to genetics and infant dependency, but these four big factors are why we believe obesity is not a disability socially. All these points coincide with one another to affect a person's health. When a person has too much screen time throughout the day, research by Dr. Brinney of the nutrition and exercise field shows that binge watching a show, a person will also binge eat. After the show or series, a person will typically go to bed but doesn't sleep. They jump on their phone. This is also screen time that will lead well into the night. This in turn affects a person's amount of sleep or sleep patterns. In surveys also conducted by Dr. Brinney, many people start off their exercise program on the new year, but most only last for 1 to 2 weeks before stopping. Inactivity is rising as new technology and transits are introduced. People are walking or biking less because of technology like motorized scooters and hoverboards. Some skate and longboards even have a remote connected through their phone. Inactivity leads to a person becoming socially disconnected to human interaction because many people think they can get the same thing from social media like Facebook and Instagram. After learning about the many different factors to why a person can't or is unable to stay healthy, we concluded that from a social standpoint, obesity is not a disability and a person is able to do something about being obese.
In conclusion, we as a group do not believe obesity is a disability, and we argue this through social and economic perspectives. We show this through research in prior cases such as Green versus Union Pacific Railroad, Mayo Clinic, and surveys provided by Dr. Brainy. As mentioned above in our debate, people who are obese won't suffer due to an economic loss because they can still find a job in which they meet the requirements. It's a difference if they choose to apply somewhere that may be more difficult for them to provide efficient service for the company, but overall, they are still able to obtain a job. Not only will people argue economically, but socially as well. Many factors will cause people to be obese, and inactivity is one factor that leads them to being socially distant. It's as easy as not binge watching, reducing screen time, and going outside being active. These are the reasons why we believe obesity is not a disability. Thank you.